Hi, this is Dr. Darren Cohen. Welcome to the Solid Rock Performance Podcast, where we dive deep into issues of mental performance, sports psychology, strength sports, and really anything that can impact your performance outside of your physical skills and physical attributes. I want to thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate you as a listener and as a follower. And here we go. Let's get started. Hi, this is Dr. Darren Coe, and I have with me today Mitch Hooper, who is going to be competing in World's Strongest Man, and who is, from all accounts, one of the coolest people in strongman. Welcome, Mitch, to Solid Rock Performance. And
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you on. I was really excited when you said, yeah, I'll come on your podcast. That was pretty cool. Kind of made my day.
Well, we have our reasons for doing it. Everyone who gets contacted for things like this. And, the biggest thing that I pull from strongman is how many people do it for their mental health. So if we're talking in the mental health space, whether it's related to competition or whether it's related to just exercise in general, related to strongman, it's something I'm always here to do and always happy to give my 2 cents on.
Oh, that's wonderful. So would you just take a minute and introduce yourself, some career highlights, maybe a little bit about yourself, and how about what do you think your superpower is?
All right. So to introduce myself, I'm Mitch Hooper, professional strongman from Canada. Growing up, I played every sport you can imagine. American football up into university. I didn't enjoy that so much. Went into bodybuilding, marathons. Then I moved to Australia for education. Happened to take up strongman at the time, and this is sort of what it's turned into. So the education I went over there for was to get my master's in exercise physiology. So my day job is helping people with chronic conditions, injuries, or people who just need a lifestyle change to help them essentially have their health span match their lifespan and get those later years really still quite valuable. And sometimes the best time to do that's in your 20s and 30s. Yeah. In terms of career highlights, the invitation to World's Strongest Man, because of events over the past couple of years, I was hoping to get one, but it's certainly unexpected. And I think I probably have the least competition experience of anyone ever to be invited to World's Strongest Man. I have a couple of state titles from Australia. I set the Static Monsters world record, edged out Jerry Pritchett for that. And that's sort of the extent of the biggest things that I've accomplished. I've got most notoriety for a 475 kilo deadlift about 6 months ago at a charity competition. And here we are. To be honest, I think my superpower when it comes to strength sports is that I have so many good things going in my life that I don't put a lot of weight, a lot of pressure on myself to do well, because I have things like people trying to maintain their independence. I have a family I love and I care about. And those things are really on the forefront of my mind. And they would dictate my mood a lot more than excelling at a deadlift or a yoke or a World's Strongest Man or something to that nature.
I was just going to ask you, thank you for explaining, how are you managing the speed at which events seem to be moving?
With regard to the increase in load?
Yeah, the increased load, moving onto the world stage in terms of strongman and athletics, and opening up a new clinic, from what I understand. Yeah. And things would seem to be accelerating in your life in a number of areas. Yeah. How are you managing all that?
I see happiness and fulfillment as two very separate and distinct things. Sometimes I'm not the happiest knowing that I have to get up early in the morning and I look at my calendar for the day, and 8 p.m. is when I'm able to get home and enjoy dinner with my fiance. So I'm not the happiest about it sometimes. I'm pretty run down when it comes to training, and that's sort of the time we're at right now. I'm starting to deload. But my levels of fulfillment are extremely high. and it's something that I've always had in the forefront of my mind. And a lot of times, if I'm not going in the direction I want to go at 1,000,000 miles an hour, my mental health really suffers for that. So I have a very clear, distinct purpose for everything I'm doing, from strongman to the clinic to my online coaching business to the stuff with my family, and everything's going well. And it's a challenging thing to keep all those balls up in the air, but you make it work. And I still have my favorite iPhone games. I still have my favorite TV shows. So it's not as though I don't have a life, but I think I would waste a lot less time than a lot of people.
I like that separation of fulfillment and happiness. I think that's some solid wisdom that people could learn from. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think happiness in general is very fleeting, and I'm very happy if I eat a pizza. I'm very happy if I see a good movie. I have a nice night out, but you can't really rely on that. If you do, you're gonna be. It's all going to be temporary. It's all going to be a roller coaster.
Yeah, and when it becomes a roller coaster, it becomes painful.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So would you share a little bit about growing up? What were your parents like? What was it like in the Hooper household?
So my parents separated when I was 4. Really both lovely people. I have a sister who's a year older than me. I had a stepdad come in and out of the picture. He came in when I was maybe about 6 and left when I was around 11 or 12. Then another stepdad that came in the picture when I was 15, 16, and he's still around. Fantastic guy. I'm really thankful to have him there. But it was I didn't have a huge number of friends growing up. I had a few friends, and socially I was very very quiet, very shy, and by nature I maintain that to this day, that's still what I have to fight every day. And it's another good reason that I like to get on podcasts every chance I can, because it really helps me personally to be able to have a fear and just keep battling away and keep fighting that. I had nearly failed junior kindergarten because I was too shy to speak to my teacher, and so she assumed as though I didn't know how to count. I didn't know my alphabet. My mom had to go in with me to give me the confidence to be able to go tell her that. Then growing up in school, I was regularly in trouble, regular in the principal's office, but always for things that were mischievous in nature. I never got suspended because my mom was on the PTA, and she pulled a lot of strings for me in that way. And I'd do something stupid at school. I'd come home and I'd tell my mom what I had done. She'd say, "Okay, thank you for telling me." The teacher would then call her and say, "You'd never believe what Mitchell did in class." She says, "No, I do know. He told me." The teacher go, "No, but did he tell you that he did this, this, and this?" Yep. He told me all of it. And so, I was a very honest kid. I've been told that I've always had a very good heart, and if I ever upset someone, it really, really affects me. And that sort of carried up into high school. I did well enough to get into university, but wasn't particularly interested in studying. For example, English class, we had Shakespeare as a subject, and I did the math, and that was worth about a third of our grade. And I went to my teacher very honestly, and I said, "Look, I'm not going to do this. It's not interesting to me. I don't understand the purpose. So I'm going to opt out." And she's explaining to me how it's going to impact my grade. I said, "No, I did the math. That's okay. I understand. And I understand my grade would be lower for it, but I'm electing not to do this part." Then 12 months later, when the vote for valedictorian came around, you needed an English teacher to sign off on the paperwork to get you nominated. And I went to her, and she got me back, and she said, I'm actually not comfortable signing that, based on your behavior in class and this, that, and the other. Thankfully, one of the sport coaches was the English coach. He signed off, and I ended up winning valedictorian, which is essentially a popularity contest for people who have an average above 80. Throughout high school, I wasn't particularly interested in people, wasn't particularly interested in parties. I had a ton of acquaintances, and I knew everyone pretty much in the school, and was happy to say hello, but wouldn't want to go to parties. That carried out through university. I very rarely went to the bar, very rarely went to parties through active decisions that I don't understand to this day, that I would essentially say there's no purpose for me to do that. That's not part of my direction that I'm going. I don't understand. I need to learn more. I need to become more educated. As I've grown up, when I got through university, I started to realize that regardless of what you want to do with your life, you need a lot of people to help you get there. And so I looked at the position that I was in. I was fairly dissatisfied with the fact that I didn't make the number of connections that I should have at university. And I thought, what's the most dramatic way for me to improve that? And I thought, traveling across the world, getting off a plane, knowing nobody, and saying, fresh start, give it a crack. How many friends can you make? That's essentially the largest reason that I went off to Australia. So I went to Australia, and that was just a life-changing experience. It had nothing to do with the beaches. It had very little to do with the education. It had a lot to do with the fact that when I left for Australia, I arranged a little going away party, and I was able to invite 5 or 6 people, and one person showed up. And then when I left Australia, in the midst of COVID, we had about 30 people cancel our going away party. They weren't able to make it because of the outbreak. And we still sat in a room of 75, 80 people, none of which were family members. That was really fulfilling to me. So that's sort of my story in short. So the consistent thing for me is if I identify a weakness, I work very, very hard at doing what I can to improve that.
If you think back to your childhood, do you remember at what point can you remember this sort of purpose-driven mindset kicking in?
So my grandpa was very, very successful in business. And from when I was 6, 7 years old, maybe a little bit older, maybe about 8, I didn't have the dreams of becoming a professional hockey player like other people did. I maintained always, I'm going to be a business owner or I'm going to be a lawyer. And for whatever reason, those are the 2 things that I always wanted to be. And my grandpa would always say, be a lawyer, less headaches. And here I am as a business owner. So
yeah,
but very young, very, very young. I didn't relate to people in that way. And I still don't relate to a lot of people that way who aren't purpose-driven like that.
Can you think of events? So what I'm hearing is a person who when they identify a threat, perhaps you use the word weakness and my brain turned that into threat. When they identify a threat, they turn it around and go into it as a challenge.
Yeah.
Can you think of some events throughout your life? Obviously the relationship with your grandfather, but other things that happened maybe, or other mentors or other people that were in your life that really clicked that piece into place? Because that's, in my experience clinically, that is a piece that seems to be missing from a lot of people when people don't move towards threat.
Yeah. I do so much thinking about larger things, and I have very little time and patience for thinking about things day to day. And if my fiance and I, if we're out with friends and they start talking about the weather, or they start talking about something that's fairly minute and boring to me, I will full check out. My mind is now somewhere else, and I can't think of a person who's helped me do that. I'm very hard-headed to a fault, and I've always sort of had that nature to me, that, if something isn't the way you want it to be, I am too uncomfortable not going and addressing that with everything that I can. So no, I couldn't think of a specific role model. It's just, I suppose it's sort of how I'm wired. And it's my belief that you do it once or twice and you can start to reinforce that, or that's what I've experienced anyway. And I think if I'm thinking of a lot of people who I've interacted with and had really good, honest conversations with, often people don't even take the time to identify their own weaknesses, never mind attack them. So I have issues with people in my family. So my brother-in-law, for example, I just don't think I'll ever be able to form a good, strong connection with him because he's quite the opposite. Anything that's a weakness, he wants to completely shy away from, and to a fault. I can't get around that. I can't relate to him on anything because of that, as an example. I think I've seen two very different ends of the spectrum. One is my grandpa, who's done very well, worked very hard and seen the fruits of his labor. And one is my father, who's, loveliest guy, hardest worker. But he was a few bad decisions, and his life is dramatically different for that. And it's because of, he would admit as well, because of personality and parts of his personality that want to take care of people so badly that he's going to neglect himself financially and his well-being and all. So I think I've seen that side of God. He's a fantastic man, other than this one flaw that's really changed his life for the worse quite dramatically. And I think I can learn from that.
Yeah, that's another thing that I'm hearing is you really have a learning mindset, that it's okay to go into something willing to learn it, take lessons from, really, it sounds like many places. When they come to you, take them and learn from them and move forward. Am I hearing that correct?
Yeah. I don't think of it as learning as much as I think of growing, and I suppose they're synonymous with each other in this case. But I always certainly have a growth mindset, and growing every day is. I think that's a soundbite. That's it's probably inaccurate for people who do very well, because you're growing every day in essence. But I think that's thinking of it a bit too grand. And so I think of it, and this is the mantra I use for my team that I coach, is to be good enough every day. And for me, defining good enough is that I went over to the bike shop and I introduced myself to the store owner and gave him some of my cards to say what we do. I'm doing this podcast. I had a meeting with a physiotherapist just before this about connecting, and all of those things make me horribly uncomfortable. But I know that I have to do them to consider today good enough. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I certainly appreciate you being here. Let's move into just something brief. If you could maybe tell us about your sporting history.
Sure. So I played ice hockey, as most Canadians do. I played ice hockey for about 9 years, from when I was 15 to when I was 14. In and amongst that, I played competitive baseball. I played competitive basketball, competitive volleyball. I golfed at a provincial level. I was in the youngest person in the under 18 competition when I was 14. Really enjoyed golfing all through high school. Then I played every high school sport. And I think that was probably my way of socializing as much as staying active and all the other things. Played every single sport that I could in high school, from track to rugby to basketball to football to golf to everything. Just really enjoyed competing. And then, went into university. When I went to university, I sort of had the choice between golfing or golfing in America or playing football in Canada. And playing football was kind of the sexier choice. And so I decided to do that. Had very little regard for how much I actually enjoyed football. And I'm a huge fan of it. I love it. I got my Packers socks on right now. When it comes to bashing your head repeatedly, it's just something I had no patience for. And I left after 3/4 of the season was over. So I didn't even make it through a full year. Psychologically, it was really hard on me to be working that often at something that I didn't enjoy. So that was that. And then I went to Australia. Then I did bodybuilding. I came last place in the bodybuilding competition that I was in, but I'm extraordinarily proud of myself for that one. And that's still the hardest thing that I've ever done in terms of the discipline it takes to get down to that sort of conditioning. And then I ran marathons.
we're going to put a pin in that bodybuilding thing. I want to come back to that.
Sure. Then I ran marathons. My goal was to qualify for the Boston Marathon, which at the time was 3 hours and 5 minutes. I managed to get my time down to 3 hours, 24 minutes. And in my last marathon, the first half was on pace for 2 hours and 40 minutes. And you can imagine that's a poor decision when you're not conditioned to run 2 hours and 40 minutes for at that speed. So I completely bombed out and finished that one in about 3.5 hours. So, you know, I look back at my sporting career, which a lot of people would consider very successful. And I see a lot of failures. Like, I didn't hit my goal for the Boston Marathon. I didn't have any sort of the career that I was expected to in football in college. In golf, I had a lot of potential to do more, and I didn't fulfill that. So I don't regret any of that, and I understand the decisions around it. But I think it's important to recognize that, and I'm very comfortable with calling those failures.
What? Well, however you want to explain it. I was going to say briefly, but I don't know that I want the brief explanation. As you kind of tick those off, if you could go back through, what did you learn from those?
So hockey, I'll start from the beginning. Hockey, I learned everything that has to do with working as a team, because I started that when I was 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
I also learned how different adults communicated with groups of children, and I was sort of able to zoom out when I was playing and evaluate that. And I've never been a super intense person about the sport I'm playing. I was just as interested in the McDonald's after the hockey game as I would be in going to the provincial championship. But there's a lot of positive adult role models that I met through hockey. I also saw how some people behaved in the stands, and the hockey dads and parents getting into fights and whatnot. And that part really bothered me. That part really upset me. Then from golf, I think there's a certain amount of, there's a lot of fortitude in playing a sport that you got to be so precise, and there's no one to fall back on, and it's just you. So I sort of learned how to deal with pressure in some ways from golf. From American football, the biggest thing that I learned is I was 17 when I graduated high school, and I went to training camp, and I was up against 23, 24-year-olds, which in physical development is a huge, huge difference. And I was terrified, but you have no choice. And that really that gave me a lot of confidence to be able to go into a meeting with a doctor, for example, or whatever, a person who might intimidate you, and you've been there before, you've done it, and you know, everyone's a person at the end of the day. And it taught me the value of getting knocked around a little bit, and I think that's a very valuable lesson that certainly every man needs to learn. The bodybuilding that taught me a lot of discipline, and then strength sports have sort of brought the team element back into it, even though it's an individual sport. It's taught me the value of doing something for your mental health, and what that means for different people, and it's taught me the value of being able to have something very concrete to progress every day, which I'll never stop striving to do, whether that's athletics, or whether that's a business, or whether that's something with my family. But I know for me, I need to be chasing a number always. Yeah,
that reminds me of I kind of keyed in on the mental health that you just mentioned. That reminds me of a piece of research that showed that high school students who engage in some type of team sports tend to have less incidents of mental health issues, particularly depression, in their 20s when they become young adults.
Right.
So your sporting history, I see kind of as a buffer for later in life. as you've moved into many other areas, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's not to say that my mental health has always been good or always been in a good place at all, but I think that you learn a lot of those strategies through having some tough times.
Yeah, I heard teamwork. I heard focus and fortitude. I heard community. I heard discipline. I mean, those are all in the literature. Those are all things that are found in research on people who excel.
Well, good. I'm accidentally ticking the boxes.
Ticking the boxes, yeah. Pardon me, I'm going through puberty again. Could you walk us through how you got into strength sports?
Just happenstance, really. When I moved to Australia, I knew that gyms that I liked to go to were in industrial park type settings. I found one that was perfect in terms of where I was looking to exercise. I had no real athletic goals at the time, and the guys there powerlifted. Happened to get into that. Then a different group of guys there did strongman, and physically I'm not optimized for powerlifting, and they said you do really well in strongman, and then I just made my way over.
Okay. So you didn't. It always seems like when I hear strongman interviewed, all of them until you now have said something like, "I just remember the age of 6 or 10 or whatever, watching, strongman on ESPN or ABC Sports or." And just being taken with it as a child, and then it comes out later. It's interesting that you kind of stumbled into it.
Yeah, I saw it on TV the same as everyone else, and I probably took the same amount of interest in it as other males did who like sport. But I certainly thought that American football was a lot cooler. And I don't have a grandiose story of how I started. And to be honest, the reason I stay is because of the community, and that's probably a lot more interesting than the reason I got into it in the first place.
Yeah,
it's I take it no different, and I put no more weight into it than I did when I ran marathons. And the goal is very clear for me, and it has nothing to do with winning World's Strongest Man. To me, the goal is simply to create the biggest platform I can to be able to talk about the things that I want to talk about, and to be able to promote general health and well-being for everyone out there.
Yeah, I love that. So now I want to go back to your comment about bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Are there differences in your mindset when you're training for bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman?
Yeah, of course so. Powerlifting and strongman is probably the easier distinction to make, because in powerlifting it's all very, very calculated. Everything's to the gram. Everything's has to be exactly this, that, and the other. And then going into a competition, you sort of know what you're capable of and what the other person's capable of. It's quite structured. Where in strongman, you might have an event change on the day. At a local level, the sandbag might burst and they use a larger sandbag or a smaller sandbag, or the stone cracks in half or whatever. So you have to be a lot more prepared for things to go wrong. And I find that more comforting, knowing that something's going to change, than I do thinking that it's in powerlifting when everything stays the same. You get thrown for a total loop if your warm-up time is less than expected or something of that nature, where in strongman, no one's promising you a warm-up at all. So that's probably powerlifting to strongman. And in bodybuilding, you just have to be switched on like all day, every day, because it's about your diet. And it's there's a lot of vanity to it that I don't like. And that's the biggest reason why I didn't want to do it anymore. But it's certainly, in terms of mental toughness, it'll build it better than anything else.
Okay. perhaps to a detriment for those that aren't ready for it?
From a psychological perspective?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think in the bodybuilding world, most people do it because they want to be the best looking person. They treat it less as a sport and more of a personal vendetta.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate part is I look at myself when I was bodybuilding, and I was about 195 pounds when I stepped on stage, and I was very, very thin, which is why I didn't do well. I didn't have a huge amount of muscle on me because I depleted myself so much. But there's still a large part of me that's a little bit bummed out that I don't have a similar physique to when I did that. And I don't particularly like being heavier. And now I have a body ideal that's very far away from something that's achievable or maintainable for me over the long term. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly something that I still battle with. And if I win World's Strongest Man and I'm up there shirtless with the trophy up, I'd probably be the only World's Strongest Man ever to go like, oh, but you know, I'm a bit soft in that picture. I don't look the best. And stuff like that, for whatever reason, it still plays on my mind. But you know, you have no choice if you want to be competitive in sport.
Yeah, and research is very strong in the area, or in the relationship in athletics, in sport, between, for people that are not mentored correctly, there tends to be a unhealthy relationship between sport and body image.
Yeah.
And I think it gets worse the more you get into the strength sports. Not for everybody, but for many people. It's an area of anxiety and perfectionism that I don't know that we're addressing very well just yet.
Well, and I don't think many people talk about it. You take someone like Terry Hollands, for example, and I haven't listened to a lot of what he's had to say, but Terry, when he competed early on, he was, you know, definitely on the more overweight side and less fit. And now he's shredded beyond belief. Mm-hmm. And I don't tend to believe that that's just because he thought it'd be more fun to be shredded. I bet there's a psychological component. I think people are fairly uncomfortable to talk about it, and it has taken me a long time, and it's taken me to accomplish a lot to be confident enough to say my how I look is still something that is really on my mind. It still bothers me to some degree, and the thing I like most about strength sports is now you've got a performance outcome, and I think performance outcomes are really healthy, because what I've come to realize is that when I was bodybuilding, I didn't look at myself and ever go, you look shredded, you look really good, you look awesome, you look ready for the beach. I always thought I was a little bit overweight, and same thing when I was running marathons. And I've recognized that feeling is the same regardless of how I look. And so you kind of got to focus on something else, and focusing on the health outcome or focusing on the performance outcome certainly would provide me a lot more return than focusing on how I feel that I look. That brings up something. You're kind of in a unique position, having run marathons and now doing strongman. Can you compare and contrast those mindsets? Yeah, it's almost strongman is total focus for short periods of time, and marathons are how long can you not focus and just kind of be out of your body.
Yeah.
Both have a similar approach in terms of fueling. Both have a similar approach in terms of changing your volume and intensity and peaking for competition and all of that. But yeah, strongman is definitely more. It's definitely more challenging in a given moment, but it's much easier as a sport overall.
Okay. I like that. I've mulled that over on several occasions, and I like that separation or that contrast. That's nice.
Yeah, and I don't want to take away, because I think that's a personal experience, and for some people, committing to strongman and being consistent with it might be the hardest thing that they've ever done, and I find that quite easy. So just to be clear, that's the It's definitely a personal feeling rather than something that I think is a rule.
Okay. How do you recharge your batteries? How do you take care of yourself?
I don't. I don't see a lot of value in it. I definitely go for walks with the dogs. I definitely relax. I try to get enough sleep in. But I see recharging batteries as something to make you happy. And like I said before, I don't really care if I'm happy. I care if I'm fulfilled. Okay. So vacations are nice, but I'm probably less happy when I get back from a vacation than when I went on the vacation, because I just spent a week or two not in the direction that I want to go.
Yeah.
And to be honest, World's Strongest Man is going to be a relaxing experience for me. I believe I'll be able to sleep in. I'll on both my businesses, they'll hit a pause, and I'll have a focus on one thing, which will be pretty unique for me. So that's going to recharge my batteries. But I don't feel the need to do that really on an ongoing basis.
What recharges your energy when you're feeling low on mental and physical energy?
Just get on with it. If there's enough on your plate, there's plenty of times that I don't want to do what I'm doing, but I keep my to-do list, which I would show you, but it's got people's names on it and whatnot. I've got the to-do list, and that list isn't getting shorter. And the interesting thing about running your own business is if you don't do something, it's sitting there for you the next day. No one's got your back. No one's looking out for it. So if I'm low on mental energy, I continue on. And for me, that only lasts a couple of hours until I get into something else.
Sure.
A lot of times physically I'm exhausted going into the gym, and sometimes you're exhausted, and that's the best workout of your life, and you get the pre-workout into you and you just get on with it.
Okay. That's that discipline coming out.
Yeah. And it's sort of the motivation versus discipline I see as a very similar argument to happiness versus fulfillment. And you're going to be motivated sometimes, you're going to have energy sometimes. It doesn't really matter if you're disciplined and you understand your direction, just the same as if you're fulfilled, that sticks with you. And it provides you sort of it's like I see it as a low level eternal happiness if you're doing things that fulfill you, just the same as I see it as a low level eternal energy if you're doing things, if you maintain maintain your discipline.
What are some of your goals?
My goal is to talk about them. It scares me. People don't understand how much I want to do. And I see someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I see how he used his platform to really be a huge influence in the fitness community. And I'd sort of like to do the same thing and use my platform to be able to influence as many people to get moving as possible. I want to get exercise physiology recognized as a profession by the government that's covered by some government schemes in Canada. At the moment, we're the only Commonwealth country who doesn't. I want to get exercise physiology into the education systems here so that you can learn that in university as you can in other Commonwealth countries. I want to be able to give back to my family what was given to me, which is a big challenge because a lot was given to me. And I really just want to leave a net positive mark on the world. And the challenging part of that is the more people you try and help, the more people want to help you. And so I seem to not be able to get away from really, really good people who really help me out a lot. And it just keeps building the debt and building the debt. So I'm very thankful for them. But I want to be seen as someone who gave back more than they took and impact people across the world, get people a little bit healthier.
Those are some really big goals. Those are I'm guessing they're very motivating.
They can be, but it's also when something's so far away, it has to be broken up a little bit into smaller goals for sure. But it's the classic thing of everyone overestimates what they can do in a year and underestimates what they can do in a decade. I've got 30 or 40 years of professional work ahead of me, and if I can maintain a reasonable pace that whole time, I don't see any reason at all that I can't have that sort of impact. And you take someone like Brian Shaw, and I think I don't know what the guy stands for. I don't know. I don't really know much about him. I've never met him. I've watched a good handful of videos, but I don't know what's important to him. I don't know what his values are. And maybe he wants to be a bit more private that way. But I think it's almost a waste of having a huge platform that you could use for some sort of directed purpose. And I don't even care if that purpose is getting people selling bicycles or, like getting kids moving more, whether that goal is completely not health related. It has to do with your mental health, or it has to do with telling people your best vacation spots, or you're making some sort of impact or something like that. So I want to build the biggest platform I can, affect the largest number of people that I can, and keep my family in a really comfortable place, and somehow in the mix be able to be a good dad, a good husband, and a good son.
Do you have a process for breaking all that down into more manageable chunks?
No, I'm very weak in processes. I don't do that enough. But every business has KPIs that you're trying to hit.
Yeah.
And there's parts to that if I want to get this number of clients in, I know that I got to do these meetings and I got to talk to these people and all of that. But no, I don't really break it down. I sort of just I see a lot more value in knowing. I call it your North Star. And I think you need to have that North Star. And people get too hung up on exactly every step to take to get there, where I look at every step I take and I think to myself, is that in the correct direction? And it doesn't have to be the best direction. And my nature would be more to move twice as far, kind of crooked line up to there and not plan it out as much, than to plan everything out perfectly and take that perfect straight path, because I don't think you ever know what that perfect straight path is.
So I just have to do just a comment here, is that recently, meaning over the past 5 years or so, maybe 10 years, in the science of goal setting, what they're finding is that at the elite level for athletes, and I think this can cross over to business and other types of performance, that having very specific goals that you go from one to the next actually has a tendency to lower performance. And so now they have discovered what they're calling open goals, which is, I want to, what you said, I want to have the largest platform to share my desire to influence people to get out and get moving and live healthy.
Yeah.
That's a massive open goal. And that's how athletes who are at that elite level think as well. They don't think about, well, I want to do 242.2 grams by next Sunday. They're much more about, by the time I do World's Strongest Man, I want to challenge myself with the most weight I can get on the bar.
Yes.
It's much more open and exploratory. And they're finding that once you reach a certain level of performance, that's actually enhances performance better than having those specific goals.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, I mess with that quite a bit.
Yeah. They're finding that the real specific, challenging, time limited, those types of goals are good for novices and intermediate performers who are still kind of finding their way.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Because I think if I were to set very specific goals, I would need to think of every single variable associated, and I can't do that. I'm not smart enough, and so I'm not sure anyone's smart enough. And I had no plans, for example, to come on this podcast, but I have what's called a yes mentality. I say, until I have kids, everything that's in the direction that I want to go is a yes. And I'll create the time for anything. You really never know where it's going to take.
I want to transition to, so this discussion of open goals, I'd like to transition to something very specific. You mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that you deadlifted 475 kilos. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I'd like to dig into that for just a second, and put you back there for that deadlift as you're staring down at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
What was going through your mind, if anything, and what were you feeling?
Well, on the day, it was a charity event, so I was just going to break my own Australian record, and I thought pulling 1,000 pounds would be awesome.
Yeah.
So my attempts went 400, 435. No, 400, 440, 455, and 455 was 1,000 pounds. But still is 1,000 pounds, believe it or not. And after that, I looked to the organizer, and that was the end of the comp. I looked to the organizer. I said, I'll give 475 a crack because that's what Ivan Makarov did. And that was the best deadlift in the World Deadlift Championships that year. And based on body weight, that would put me third all time at the time. So I thought that would be fun. But I'm very honest with myself. And I thought it was a long shot. I thought I probably had about a 30% chance to get it. And when I get down to the bar, I just think of I think of pulling for 5 seconds. I think of not changing my position. I think of pulling as hard as possible. I also have some noise going on in the back of my head of the attention that you'll get from doing something like this. And again, the attention, at least on the conscious level, it's nothing to do with people thinking I'm awesome. Because I think regardless of what you do, people think you're not awesome. But the number of times that, or the leverage that something like that would build me. And frankly, the leverage from that has now got me into World's Strongest Man, has got me into the World Deadlift Championships, and has really, really done a lot for me in terms of moving me in the direction I want to go. So I am thinking about that as I step up to the bar.
Wow. So your purpose, I think this is a good lesson for athletes. And it's something I try and talk to people about when I talk to them about increasing or improving their performance, is you have a clear purpose, which is always driving you. That's what I'm hearing. That regardless of what you're doing, that purpose is the foundation or the energy upon which you're building. And I believe that those athletes who are destined to excel are the ones that have a clear purpose as a person and as an athlete. Not really a question, just a comment.
No, yeah, it takes a lot of pressure off of each individual circumstance, because like I said, I don't plan it out. I don't say I'm going to win World's Strongest Man so I can get this platform to then say this. I just say everything I do is in that direction, and just knowing you're competing is in that direction. And if I win, great. If not, there's going to be 100 other things that I can continue to build it up. If I wasn't a strongman at all, I'd still have the same purpose. So this is just a nice add-on. So I think I put a lot less weight behind each individual action than someone who says, I want to be, I'm going to win World's Strongest Man. That's a lot of pressure on yourself to do it right now.
Yeah.
And, I don't understand when guys act like wild banshees before they do a lift. They're slapping each other and screaming at each other. And I don't understand what their motivation is. I suppose there's an arousal state involved with that, but there's nothing that gets my arousal state higher than understanding the levity of something that I'm about to do.
I actually skipped that question that's interesting, because I noticed that you are, relatively speaking, a fairly non-expressful person when you lift and compete. You're not very expressive. And I was going to ask you if you could describe your intensity.
Yeah, I'm extraordinarily intense, but it's very quiet by nature, which in my day-to-day life, I'm far from quiet. I love chatting. And I can't keep my mouth shut. But in competition, I see no value in both an athletic and a psychological perspective, in screaming, in getting slapped, in all of those things, in smelling salts, and all those things as guys tend to do. I don't need that. I know that I don't need that. And because the purpose for me, I don't find it to be an aggressive sport. I think it's controlled power gets you a lot of places. And that's all I see it as, just the same as, Olympic weightlifting. You got to be very precise, very powerful at the same time. And I see most of our events to be the same way. But yeah, I don't like to do that. And in terms of performance, I tend to believe that the more you stimulate your sympathetic nervous system, the more difficult it's going to be for your body to recover. And so if you're going mental in the first event of a 5 or 6 event competition, you're not going to be able to go mental 6 times and be able to get that arousal state up. And eventually that system's going to burn out. So you will see very rare times that I'll get excited, but it's usually when something has finished. So for example, I've got excited once this prep when I overhead pressed 216 kilos, because I understand what that means for me as my worst event. I know that if I got that up to that stage, I'm ready to be a serious contender. And I understand what being a serious contender means for what I'm trying to do. But for the most part, I actively try to keep my emotions quite low. Also, you think about the people I'm trying to impact, and it would be very off-putting for these people to see me screaming my head off. That doesn't mesh with telling someone, I want you just to get moving, lift a little bit of weight, go for a walk on the treadmill. And I'm saying that on one hand, and on the other hand, I'm going absolutely ballistic. To me, it's a value mismatch, and it doesn't represent who I want to be.
Okay. I love that explanation. And I like the fact that you reference the sympathetic nervous system, and that if you overtax it, then you struggle later on in the competition. And this is something that I have. I think it's the one thing in competition that I continue to analyze and tweak and fix is, how much do I activate the sympathetic nervous system so that I can be intense for a lift, get off the lift, come back down, recharge energy in between the lift, and still bring it back up to this. Like, I don't want to fry it, yet it still needs to be activated.
Yeah. Well, if I could give 2 cents on how I do it, I sort of take the same mentality as if I was to go into a job interview before a lift. I don't feel that most people need help getting to a high arousal state when you're about to have however many people, even if it's 20 people watching you at a local comp, it's still enough to get you going.
Yeah.
And so I don't post these parts of the videos because they're not interesting. But before my 475 deadlift, for example, my routine is that I'll stand there, I'll look up away from everyone, and when your name is called and you walk out to do something, everyone starts screaming for you. And I'll just stand there quiet, staring up until everyone else goes quiet, because I know that if I try and go into the bar and start getting crazy and erratic, I'll wait until they stop. I'll wait until everyone stops screaming, until it's quiet. Then I'll get myself set and ready to go. And I'll feel my heart is beating out of my chest, and I'll just kind of feel that and accept that. And I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to encourage yourself in any way. So I think of the strategies you might use if you're going into a stressful situation, which could be some big deep breaths. For me, I actually find pacing to be quite common. So you'll see me pace quite a lot. And yeah, I try and calm my system the whole time, because I know that it doesn't. When I actually lift the implement, I know there's no chance that I'm not going to be calm. Sorry, there's no chance that I'm going to be calm. I'm going to get 10 out of 10 as soon as I start anyway.
Yeah, I like that take on it. I think that's a very good take, actually. That you're not going to be activated when you're doing something in a strongman competition. So the goal is to keep yourself balanced, I guess.
Yeah. And if you watch my 475 deadlift, you see it happen in real time. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but as soon as I dropped the lift, I was ready to go crazy. I was super excited, super happy, and I go to my shirt and I go like this, and I was about to rip my shirt.
Yeah,
and you can see that, and then I just let go, and I talked myself out of it 2 seconds, even though it was over. It's just not who I want to be, and for some reason I'm able to keep that in the back of my mind all the time.
So you went straight into activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Yeah.
Probably not able to, but certainly in talking myself down from an extremely high arousal state to behave like a calm, reasonable person.
Yeah, that's truly fascinating, and I think that's a good learning point for a lot of athletes, especially in strongman. So that was not on my question list. I appreciate you sharing that. I want to take some time as we're kind of winding down here. Will you please share with me and the rest of the listeners about your clinic and about your goals? You've talked about them throughout our discussion, but just specifically your love for helping people lead just healthier lives, and your clinic and what you're doing and how it's all working.
Yeah, so the clinic's called Longevity Nexum. Nexum means connection, and connection has many meanings to me in business. And one of those things is connecting people to the lives that they want to live. And there's a great quote that's a healthy man wants many things, and a sick man wants one thing. And being able to get the message out that the time to treat anything is before it happens. And I think we need to start approaching our health with a proactive mindset. And I think we need to get healthcare professionals with good education in management of any chronic conditions, management of injuries, but also prevention of injuries and how to progress your exercise in a safe, comfortable manner. I think that has to be the cornerstone of what we do moving forward. We're going to have so many issues as a society if we aren't able to get the health span longer to match the lifespan, because we're just going to have so many medications, and we're going to have so many people who can't work and have to live dependent on other people. And that's my biggest passion, and how that's borne out is in treating people who get injuries and niggles from their exercise. It's in seeing people who might have had an adverse health event, and now it's time for them to start taking care of themselves. And it's in people who just recognize that they haven't lived a very healthy life and they need a way to get moving and they don't know how to do it. So those are most of the people who will come to see me. The clinic opened 10 days ago. I took possession of the unit 2 weeks before that. So I personally carried every piece of equipment in here up the fire escape, and yeah, we're all set up and good to go. So right now I'm in the clinic and I'm looking at the best medical devices that I can think of, and that's a treadmill, that's an exercise bike, that's barbell, that's a cable machine, that's dumbbells, and a little bit of space to do any work that you need in there. So I see this as medicine. And I think that's how we need to start approaching things as a society, for us to be economically viable and just be healthy, happy people. Yeah,
That's you're being a little bit radical there, Mitch.
Radical based on where we are right now, but very sensible for people who know the research and know sort of where we're headed.
I fully agree with you. I'm just playing a little bit. As you were discussing the peoples that you will be helping, all I thought of was, so you're going to spend the rest of your life doing treatment with people from Generation X who grew up not caring about anything except pleasure.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately it's coming back around, and I want to see more people who it's not after something has happened. I want to see people when it's before any event, and it's everyone's got the same story. You know, everyone's in their middle age, in their 50s or 60s. CDC came out with a statistic that 6 in 10 people have more than one chronic health condition, but a lot of people don't take that seriously anymore. And you have high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and you think that you're taking medication that's going to keep you healthy for a long time, but you're doing nothing to prevent coronary artery disease from coming on, which inevitably comes with those two. And you're doing nothing to prevent diabetes and metabolic obesity that comes along with all that. And then by the time you come see someone like me, you've got a whole host of issues you want to undo. And the best I can say is, well, let's manage everything as best we can and prevent you from having a stroke.
Yeah, and I will be transparent in the fact that that's where I was when I took up strongman. That's absolutely where I was. And strongman is now how it's interesting. I'll just share for just a moment, because I think it aligns with what you just said. Is I took up strongman, and I was not healthy. I still have lots of chronic injuries, chronic pain, and issues. You know, from it's absolutely the way I lived my life through the 80s and into college, and poor strategic decisions. And now I'm doing strongman, and interestingly enough, it has led to other decisions that are more healthy, because to be even competent in strongman, in my opinion, you have to change your diet.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't live on the things that are not terribly healthy. And I can always tell my performance in the gym goes down when my nutrition goes down, right? And you have to do strongman. You can't continually be in your head yelling at yourself, being negative. I think the best performances come out of being positive with yourself about how you. So it's impacted my mental health as well.
Yes.
And I'm nicer to myself. I'm the coach I'm the coach that I always needed, basically. That's how I talk to myself now.
Yeah.
And I got to get more sleep, because I got to train tomorrow. If I'm just going to be starting a competition preparation today, basically. And okay, I can start it because I feel like I got enough sleep last night. I've been putting it off because I've been so sleep deprived. And I want to at least start at a good place. I expect to be a little bit sleep deprived as I go through it. So strongman for me, and athletics in general, have opened up other things that needed to be changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And you can search and replace strongman with exercise.
Yeah.
And search and replace strength sports with fitness. And
yeah.
A lot of people have that same experience, and whether it's strongman, whether it's running, whether it's getting your sit to stands in your chair at home, it's all relative, and it's that's your journey is exactly what I want to prevent.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, let's get you into strongman 10 years earlier than you did, and the nice thing about getting moving is it's medication with the side effect of feeling better and being fitter, and you probably lose some visceral adipose tissue, and you'll lower your risk of every disease while you're tending to your say knee injury, or you're tending to your cardiovascular disease, and all of a sudden aesthetically you look better. And who doesn't enjoy that?
Yeah. Well, I just have a couple more questions. These are a little maybe more fun.
Sure.
Just a few things, and we're wrapping up here. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
In this whole experience, a lot of people lose, and in the way I behave, a lot of people lose. And unfortunately, a lot of times, those are the people who are closest to me. So I'll give a shout out to my fiance Ashley, who has been on a journey with me that's literally from running marathons to going to World's Strongest Man, and hasn't missed a beat. And I've opened up a business, and she helps me out with that and understands that I'm not going to be home at regular times. And sometimes I turn up to dinner in grimy work clothes, and sometimes after workout. And she really takes all that in stride. So without a really strong support person there, I don't think you can behave the way that I do. And I'm not putting it on at all. Like this isn't the personality for the interview. This is how I talk to my friends as well. And it's probably to the annoyance when she just wants to go out for a light dinner or something. And without a very strong life partner, I believe it's very hard to achieve much.
Very nice. Very nice. And any challenges you'd like to issue?
To anyone, we'll stick in the psychological realm. I've talked enough about the physical realm. I just think everyone out there needs to identify a way that they can continuously improve in a way that they can measure and not in a way that they feel.
I love that. The way that they can measure. Yes. Let me add to that. And those measurements lead to continued improvement.
Correct. And good feeling. And I think that good feeling should be a byproduct of your continued improvement.
Yeah. Well, Mitch, you've got the deadlift competition, world deadlift competition. Are you doing the full competition, the open?
Yeah.
You are. So you got that coming up. Many blessings to you on that.
Thank you.
And then before that, you've got World's Strongest Man, correct?
Yeah, I fly out for Worlds in 8 days.
In 8 days. Many blessings to you on that as well.
Thank you.
I love how you look at life, and I really appreciate you being a guest on Solid Rock Performance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And this is the stuff I love to talk about. So anyone who comes across me and wants to talk in this realm, I've got nearly endless time for it.
How can people contact you?
The easiest way is Instagram. Just first and last name is Mitchell Hooper. I also have a website, mitchellhooperstrongman.com, if you want to check out a few things about my sporting career. And then the business is just starting up, but you can follow us on Instagram at Longevity Nexum. That's NEXUM if you want to follow that one.
And I'll put those in the show notes.
Fantastic.